So what the heck, Bradford Ferguson? What are you telling your clients at Rebellion Air this week about the weirdness that we've seen in the first 3 days of trading?
Not a whole lot. They're they're all in. They're not really worried about the daily movements. It is a little bit shocking, but maybe there's a bit of a run up before the delivery number, so perhaps as a bit of sell the news type deal. Felt like the production and delivery numbers were pretty good.
Yeah, well, and that's just on Tesla. What about the market as a whole? The week has been at least weird.
Mm-hmm. We've been overbought, so I'm not surprised with the sell off to start the week. So we might be headed toward recession. I'm going to be doing a video about that. I'm not necessarily predicting that, but I'll have Meyer Thacker on, and we'll look to talk more about that.
I saw on X that you were discussing with Meyer about the possibility of having that discussion, and we will discuss a little bit of recessionary conversation later in this episode.
And we just did a video about semi on the Rebellion Air channel.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Nutshell. You had hopes and dreams that it'll be out this year, I hope.
Yeah, we'll see when they can get the line going, but we view it as a very important product for Tesla.
Yeah,
we nerd out on that in that video. But let's talk about the items of the day.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to talk about the bonds selling off, yields back to 4.9 on the 10-year. 4.9. That is not correct. I wrote that down wrong. Actually, in the pre-market, it's at 4.0, just a little bit over last time I checked on the 10-year. And some analysts are pulling back on their hopium about a rate cut in March. What do you think?
Yeah, I think March is way too early.
Okay.
Yeah. Just committees tend to move at the rate of their slowest or most conservative or person who doesn't want to move. So whoever among the Fed doesn't want to cut, they're going to slow things down. So I think June would be the earliest, but I think it's the likely case would be July or after.
Oh, okay. So you're way at the end of that what the folks are projecting right now. So
yeah,
it's still around 75% for March, and then continuous after that up to, I don't know, some people are saying up to 200 basis points. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm kind of in the 125 basis points category.
200 over 2 years.
200 over 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, over 2 years.
That makes sense.
I guess where the folks who are more optimistic could be right is the Fed doesn't like to let down those Fed funds prediction markets. So there's Fed funds futures that trades.
Yeah.
People use that kind of as a prediction with the percent probability and all that. And it seems like the Fed doesn't want to let down those markets.
Well, okay. So then this morning, on my show this morning, I mentioned Gary Black's list of catalysts. Of course, for those of you who don't know who Gary Black is or don't follow Gary Black, he has been doing these catalysts for as long as I can remember. And he and I don't usually agree very much. I mean, I usually agree that the ones that he lists are potential catalysts. I just think that his list is too short, but we'll talk about that afterwards. Let's take a look at his catalysts together. What do you think? So he says, number one, now I don't know if he does these in order of importance or not. I don't think so. He has the M3 Plus going on sale in the United States as a catalyst.
I think that'll be decent because it should improve margins. It'll cause a little bit of downtime in January, and hopefully it's a short downtime. Fremont hasn't been generally known for short downtimes, but maybe as a fluke with the SNX when that changed over.
Right.
So provided that downtime could be short, I think that'll be a positive. It will likely allow Tesla to raise price on Model 3 and also reduce their cost and make more parts in common with the Model Y. The thing that really shocks people about the Model 3, and I don't really get it because I'm not as into this, is it has these nice like perforated seats
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it just has more of a luxury feel. And then it's got the video screen on the console for people in the second row.
Right, right. Yeah, well, I think those are good things. My personal favorite is the better suspension.
Mhm.
People have talked about the suspension being a little tight on a
Yeah,
luxury vehicle.
yeah.
And so I could see that as being a real big plus. So do you
Mhm.
think in general, and of course I like the sportier look because that's the kind of cars I've always driven. What do you think that the M3 will be a big winner in any of its markets? Do you see it as just a continuation of kind of business as usual for the Model 3, or do you think this will pump sales up?
It's done well. It's done well in Europe. It allowed them to raise price in China and Europe. Uh, I think it's gonna do just fine. So I view it as a positive, and it should be a driver because it'll help profits. Uh, Gary Black, what he's tending to look at for catalysts are drivers of profits.
Right.
Um, and I would say like his catalysts have kind of been like 50-50 or maybe worse, where there were a lot of events that he said would be catalysts that ended up driving the stock, like the end of the Twitter overhang, and
Right.
that went on forever. And the other one was like the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act and other things like that. It just didn't pan out. Or the second stock split.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
So his number 2 on this list is evidence of a Cybertruck ramp. So I kind of like that one.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that one. If we can see that the ramp is progressing at a decent rate or even a better than expected rate, that would be a potential catalyst.
Yeah, I think you need a rather substantial uptick um for us to like begin to think they're being serious. So like to get to like 400 a week would be the first big one. Then that would mean it's like 1,600 a month, and that might indicate if they can jump right to it once they get the piece or pieces of equipment that they're missing, that would be rather meaningful. And then like get to a I we'll see if they can get to 1,000 a week.
This year,
Elon doesn't seem to think so, but
right. Well, 1,000.
400 a week would be the first. That would be the big one I'd be looking for.
When do you think that might happen? When would
I'm
you?
hoping it happens in late January or early February.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And generally they've been less than 100 a week, as far as I know.
So far, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
His number 3 is the V12 starting to roll out to the rest of the world.
So to rest of world, I think, yeah, Wall Street I think they'd be forced to recognize more for that. So I think that could be a driver. I think by itself, it's not going to be a driver until it begins to show up in profits. I think it'd move the stock because if it's really good and bulls see it and know that's really good, I think that would move the stock for a few days. But then it would probably settle down again until like the rest of the public begins to figure it out.
Yeah, because what we really need is not the V12. What we really need is for Elon to get into the Cybertruck with a Starlink on the Cybertruck so that he can play the latest video game coast to coast, hands free.
While streaming. While streaming Diablo.
While streaming, that's right, exactly. That's my goal. All right, that would be my number 1 catalyst. 4, he says, an actual groundbreaking in Mexico. Totally agree. Well, let's see. We'll move the stock. Probably move the stock. Are these mine or his? I might grab the wrong list. This looks like my list. I think that this is my list, not his list.
Oh, okay.
Grab the wrong list.
Oh, boy.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
Since
groundbreaking in Mexico, I think that would be I think it'd be positive, but I don't think it actually would move the stock much. Because, you know, yeah, we need the Model 2 to start being produced, and we're expecting that to happen in Austin first. It'd be positive if they finally do break ground in Mexico. It seems like wrangling between Tesla and the Mexican government.
there must be a little bit still going on, apparently. I'm not sure. I was so I'm going to skip a little bit ahead here because this is my list, not his. I think, I think because I don't think this is his. No, it can't be. Anyway, mega pack. I mean, sorry, beginning of advertising in earnest. I think that would be a catalyst if the world saw that there was a significant advertising campaign. Doesn't have to be television, but just really something significant that they could see.
I'm just encouraged by the moves they're making with their team and the videos they're putting out. I've not yet seen, apparently there's some really, actually, never mind. I'm getting my wires crossed. I'm on vacation, so.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, they're making a lot of good moves with the team, and Larry Goldberg seems to think they're going to do something novel as far as advertising. I really hope that it's not like getting a kit to everyone so that everyone spreads the word for them, because that's what they're doing now on Twitter and YouTube. And so like more of that would not be good. So I hope I hope there's something more to it.
Yeah, well, I actually did recommend that the other day, that at least we as content providers should be able to go to a spot on their website and download B-roll and
Make it easy.
Make it easy for us. I mean, because it's not that great now. All right. So what I was surprised about by Gary Black's list, unfortunately, I don't have his list in front of me, was that he did not have anything about Optimus on the list at all. Not a word about Optimus. And you would
basically with that, he's saying that Optimus isn't gonna start producing useful work for Tesla by year end.
Yeah, and
that's essentially what Gary is saying.
Yeah, but he
and
doesn't.
That Wall Street wouldn't know about it.
Yeah. Well, so just got off a video earlier today with Scott Walter, and we will put a card at the end if I remember. Scott's absolutely now 100% confident that they're probably already working on a line somewhere in probably in the Model S or Model X line in Fremont, and that they will be in production and in significant production this year. So he's finally come 100% into my camp. Based on that chef's video yesterday, those Harvard students showing how they cooked up a 3-course meal with a bot that was nowhere near as sophisticated as Optimus is. So I'm way more. Obviously, I'm the optimist, but I got Scott now fully in my camp. So,
I found Gary's catalyst, so if you allow me to share screen, sure. I can put it on.
Oh, okay, sure, great. We'll do that. Oh, I just hit the wrong button, of course. I always do. Let me try this one.
Nope.
No, I still hit it wrong. That time it was just a matter of missing it. All right, here we go. You're available now.
Okay. So his first one, I agree with Cybertruck halo effect in Q1. I do think Cybertruck's a big attention getter and is actually going to sell a lot of 3 and Y and may actually help Tesla raise price on 3 and Y. This leads to stabilized gross margins. The Highland 3 should help with that. The instant rebate, that's definitely going to help the Model Y. Pricing is going to be awkward with the Model 3 performance getting the rebate versus the other one's not, but pretty soon we're gonna have the Highland, so maybe it's all just gonna switch over to Highland, and we'll see what happens after that. India Gigafactory import duty deal. I don't think that would drive the stock price. It would definitely be a positive. Fed's pivot on interest rates in Q2. Yeah, that would be helpful for the Fed to do it. Market's somewhat expecting it.
Right.
So, what we saw is even before the Fed started to talk about lowering rates, the market anticipated that.
Right.
So, the market is forward looking in this respect. An OEM licensing deal for FSD, that would be a big deal.
That should be number one. If that happens, it'd be big.
Yeah, the North American charging standard, once everyone started to do that. And if Ford did a deal, I think that would put pressure on other automakers to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A buyback, I'm generally a fan of the buyback, but I've convinced myself that Tesla does need a lot of cash.
Me
It
too.
needs cash for building the bot, needs cash for building robotaxis and new gigafactories, all that. So based off all the cash they're gonna need, I think in general with all the gigafactories and all the terafactories, so making the 4680s, they need about $160 billion
Yeah.
over the next like 8 years if we're gonna be growing at Tesla speed. So if you average that out, that's 20 billion a year, and they're sitting on a little bit over 20 billion in cash.
Right.
So and the capex right now has been like 7 to 9 billion a year. So they need to step up the capex. And so they need more cash. I think in general, a lot of the moves that Tesla's going to be doing is going to provide them enough cash. But for now, I think they should hang on to their cash. So I've changed my mind on that one.
So what did you think? So what did you think about the fact he had nothing about energy in that list? Nothing about 4680.
Yeah. Energy is going to continue to grow. Whatever the holdup is on that, I'm hoping that that'll get resolved and Lathrop will blow past like 10 gigawatt hours a year, and you passed even 40. So that would be a huge deal for profits with Tesla.
Yeah.
And I think that would be I think that would lead to a substantial re-rating of the stock. I don't think it necessarily caused the stock to triple or anything.
No.
But it should be pretty meaningful.
Right. And then nothing about 4680. It would seem to me that when they have the first 4 lines fully ramped, or they can make a declaration that they're 100 gigawatts, I mean, that is $4.5 billion a year in a check from the U.S. government. I mean, that's a pretty significant deal.
Yeah. What Randy's talking about is the $45 per kilowatt hour for battery makers in the Inflation Reduction Act. And if Tesla's making their own with the 4680, you get $35 a kilowatt hour for the battery, $10 a kilowatt hour for assembling it in the modules, of which Tesla would be doing. So that's $45 per kilowatt hour. That would be really big.
Huge, massive.
And it would just enable them to do so much too.
And then if they're actually making 100 gigawatt hours and they've got the other 4 lines ramping to take it to 200 gigawatt hours, now you'd be talking about in 2025, probably at $9 billion a year just from the Austin 4680 production, not counting what they're planning to do in Reno. So that's why I'm thinking it would move the stock. It should be, I would think it would be on people's catalyst list of something that would be, okay, that's going to be real bottom line, activity. So I was a little surprised.
Yeah, and we're starting to see them move dirt in Nevada.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been asking everybody about that. So you've seen a little dirt getting moved, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that'd be huge, obviously. You said you did a video earlier on the semi. We need to move dirt to do the 5 lines of 500 gigawatt hours of 4680 and 1 million semi trucks. So I know you don't think we're going to get to 1 million semi trucks, but any semi trucks would make me happy.
Yeah.
So Morgan Stanley had a note out yesterday, and they gave their view on the various divisions, how they are actually valuing Tesla. And I don't think anybody else is valuing Tesla the same way they are. They valued only 10% for energy. They had 30% for networking services, which has got to be Dojo, I guess. They only had 22% for cars. Oh, no, it's 22%, I'm sorry, for FSD robotaxi and 21% for cars. Not a dime for Optimus. And only 10% for energy. I was a little shocked. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say one good thing about their analysis is they are baking in more things than just cars, and they've been fairly proactive on that, even though they were kind of all over the place, and they led to a lot of people selling their Tesla stock in May and June of 2019, when he came out with his price target of $10 to $500. He had a bear case of $10 and a bull of $500, and the stock hit a low when he did his conference call where he explained the $10 bear case. He seems to be all over the place, Adam Jonas, but like he is very smart. You know, he once talked about, you know, putting a Starlink on, or a terminal on Tesla cars, and now they have that. It's not like built in, but you can have a Starlink on top of your car now. It costs a little more. And I actually saw one last night, and we'll talk about that before we're done.
Oh, okay. All right. So, you know, I don't want to nail you down if you don't want to be nailed down, but do you think that Tesla will deploy Optimus in 2024 in the hundreds or in the thousands? And will they rent to third parties in 2024? And if not, when will they start renting to third parties? Maybe you said something about this in prior weeks. It's a little hard for me right now to keep everybody's numbers, you know, in my head all the time. But where are you on Optimus deployment?
Yeah, I think they're going to keep it internal, and then as soon as they're not able to use as many as they're making, then they'll deploy it to suppliers, because Tesla already has engineers in the factories of suppliers,
right?
And they're going to delay the complexity of selling to others, explaining it to others, all that stuff. They're going to delay that. I realize they are a big company. They can walk and chew gum at the same time. But I think that'll be the progression of it. And I'm very confident that they're going to start bringing Tesla bot into the factories this year.
This year. Okay. Any quantities in mind? Big quantities? Thousands?
I'd have to go back to the video we have, but I think our main expectation is next year they'll have 5,000 in the factories. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened toward the end of this year.
Okay.
But it should definitely be in the hundreds, and I think there would be a lot of pressure to bust into the thousands.
Once they get into the thousands, they actually have a production line up. What do you see as a limiting factor to keep them from going from a few thousand to hundreds of thousands?
Jeff Lutz would be the perfect person for that, but I'd say like the main thing is that chip that they're going to be using on Tesla bot. So the brains that go in there to make that many, you know, they'll need to get them from Samsung or TSMC, and they already have a relationship there, but there will be some kind of spin up or whatever to do that. And I'm guessing there's already plans to do that.
So you think that's the only limiting factor, though? It won't be that they couldn't. I mean, people are suggesting that the robotaxi, I mean, sorry, that the Cybertruck will go from 0 to, 75,000 or something this year and 250,000 by the middle of next year. Why wouldn't something much simpler be able to go from 0 to 100,000 in the first 12 months after they start the ramp?
I don't think Tesla can use 100,000 right away themselves. And I think there'll be some growing pains. You need to get the bots to do the work as quick as a human. Like that would be the first big one. So like to get them to do it like a third the pace of a human would be good. But then as quick as a human, and then they'll get quicker. And then you're going to have these growing pains where like I think the robots will be waiting on the humans to feed them. And then you're going to need to expand out what roles you have robots doing. And so I think it's just going to be a little more chaotic than people think to implement it.
All right. Okay. So it is hard to imagine how Tesla could be more successful right now. I mean, they're just doing everything right. Everything is just coming out. I mean, yes, we would have rather they sold 2 million cars last year, but the 1.8 was what they said they would do. They've got the Cybertruck. It's out there. It's happening. It's working. It's the 4680. Everybody that I'm talking to thinks the 4680 ramp is probably going very well. We've got the cathode plant almost ready to go. We've got, the Corpus Christi lithium refinery, supposed to be getting first articles here in a month or so. I mean, holy mackerel, they're just doing everything right. And yet, the stock is sitting here at the same place it was, a year ago. What do you think is going on? Jeff Lutz suggested maybe people are waiting for margins and guidance. Is that, or do you have other things that you think might finally break Tesla out of the doldrums?
Yeah, I'd say margins would do the trick. But I'm on vacation. I've been thinking about this. It's like, okay, with what Tesla bulls think are going to happen to Tesla this year, like what's the real big positive surprises that are in store? Like that would be a surprise.
That would be a surprise. Oh, making 100,000 bots.
That would be a positive surprise. I just don't think that's realistic though.
Okay, getting 4680 fully ramped.
Yeah, that would be big. Even 5,000 bots by year end. If Tesla communicated it,
right,
that would be a big positive.
2.5 million shipments.
Yeah, I don't see how they do that.
So they have the capacity, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. They have 2 lines at Berlin. They're only doing 1. They got 2 lines in Austin. They're only doing 1. But it's been that way for a long time. Yeah, we'll see.
So, but that would be a surprise. You asked what would be surprises. So if they started to show evidence that they were shooting for or could get to 2.5 million, that would be, I think even 2.4 would be a surprise, which is Larry's number, or 2.35, which is my number. I think even those would probably be a surprise to the street.
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So if they gave guidance, I think it was Jeff last night. He said, hey, maybe if they gave guidance of 2.2 to 2.5, they gave like they did last year.
Yeah.
It was only 200,000 difference, but he said, what if they gave a guidance from 2.2, but aspirationally 2.4 or 2.5? That might be helpful.
Well, I think some of these things, like they wouldn't double the stock. And that's kind of like where my mind goes as a growth investor.
Yeah, I don't think they would double.
I think it'd be helpful, but I don't think it would double the stock. Whereas I think there's other stocks out there that where they could grow that much and surprise the public.
Do you have a number for margins for January 20, what is that, 26th? And an expectation for shipments next year? Or for
Yeah,
what we're going to say?
our preliminary analysis isn't that great. So we put pen to paper and looked at things, you know, knowing that the Highland 3 is coming out of China and they're able to get more money from that for a full quarter out of China, and looked at the puts and takes of things, and it it doesn't look like that much better than Q3 for us. Hopefully we're wrong, and we are gonna sleep on that analysis and look at it some more.
Okay, so the energy will help, I guess, a little bit. Energy storage should help the overall bottom line, and services would help the bottom line. But on the car margins right now, you're thinking about the same as Q3?
We're looking at like the final profit per share number is
Okay.
what we were looking at.
Oh, I see. The profit per share number
Yeah.
would be about the same as last time. Okay. What about the auto margins themselves?
I don't know what Matt's math is on that.
All right. So, are you plugging in any numbers for any storage, energy storage for 2024 in your analysis? Do you see the ramp happening at 100% this year? Do you see it as being a smooth ramp, or are you just as confused as everybody else about what's holding them back already?
I think our numbers when we did a report on Tesla Energy, FSD, and the auto business last January, so a year ago, I think our number for 2025 was 90 gigawatt hours
Wow.
of
Well,
energy
2025.
storage. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like they're generally on track for that, but I would say the progress in Lathrop has been much slower than we expected. So we'll we'll see how that plays out.
All right, let's talk about the general economy. As I mentioned, I am, of course, the bull of all bulls. They call me the Uber bull, and that's with everything. I'm an optimist about everything, but I was a little struck by this notion that David Rosenberg came out with. I think that was this morning. It might have been yesterday. And he said last year we had this massive additional government stimulus from the Infrastructure Act. And that was contributed, he thinks, as much as 4% of the 5.3 in the third quarter of the GDP increase. And he says he doesn't see he says, yeah, that same stimulus will still be there in 2024, but he doesn't see what's going to create an increase. So he's, I think, more or less suggesting the recession might be in the third quarter. It wouldn't necessarily be a horrible, oh my gosh, we're going down the tubes recession. It would be, no, it was less than last year. So it's incrementally almost impossible to get there, I think, is his suggestion. Your thoughts?
I think what he's saying is that the stimulus isn't growing,
Right.
so it wouldn't add any more GDP growth. So when we talk about growth in GDP, we're talking about growth off of a number. So if that government spending number isn't growing, then it won't help that. So I see how that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that productivity from AI is going to lead to GDP growth. But I heard a story, something like that Google is thinking about letting go like 30,000 workers.
30,000.
30,000.
Yeah. Well, there will be a downside of this productivity advantage.
Yeah.
So, but there's plenty of jobs right now, and all the jobs numbers today were good. And of course, you never know what the job numbers are going to look like tomorrow. Those are the most important ones. But right now, at least, it's looking like we still have 1.4 jobs for every person looking. So there could be quite a significant number of people laid off because of AI that would not necessarily, ruin the economy, I guess, if you will. I'm looking at the housing market to pick up dramatically this year if we have the mortgage rates coming down, and we've already seen evidence of that. And that's 10% at least of the overall GDP. So that could be maybe some of these folks that have been coding will end up pounding drywall. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, to have a smaller gap between the mortgage rates that people are locked in at 3% or lower, and if the gap isn't 3 versus 8, but 3 versus 6 maybe, yeah, that's more favorable to like getting things moving along, and then as it further comes down, that would definitely be a big help.
Yeah, the other sector is manufacturing, which has been down 19 months in a row. You can only put off buying that refrigerator so long. You can only get your masking tape out and keep the door closed. At some point, you do have to go out and buy it. So I'm thinking there's a lot of pent-up demand for those kind of durable goods and whatnot. Autos did pretty well last year, and the projections by General Motors for next year are pretty good. So maybe the manufacturing sector will be where we get a little help.
Yeah, autos have picked up, and a chunk of that is just easing of supply chain issues. They were much harder hit than Tesla with the whole chip shortage. They can't blame the chip shortage anymore. And so they had quite the bounce back year last year. And I would tend to agree that there is some pent-up demand in manufacturing, some basic durable consumer goods. I just got a new clothes washer, so
See?
anecdotal evidence right there.
Well, this afternoon, the S&P Global U.S. Services PMI came out, and the purchasing managers are very, very bullish. They posted 51.4 in December, up from 50.8 in November, and broadly in line with what was expected. The rate of growth in output accelerated for the third month running. It was the sharpest since July. So services has certainly been where the action has been, continues to be. Everything that we're seeing suggests that things like transportation, things like vacationing, all the things related to taking vacations, all the medical kinds of things, all the things that are really, really doing well right now tend to be about people that are older than 55 and have money. That seems to be where the action is.
Yeah, we are an economy of services. I think I've heard that 70% of the economy is services.
Something like that now, yeah.
I don't know if that's still true. And I did hear at one point like that we had gotten all the way down to 11% or something as manufacturing. I'm curious where that is now, because I think we've had quite the renaissance in manufacturing. It's encouraging to hear that services is doing well. That would to me indicate that they're using AI to boost their productivity to do more. We'll see if that's true or not. I'm curious where like GDP actually turns in for Q4. The Atlanta Fed was at like 1.5% a while back, and that sounds very low.
That sounds very low, coming off of a 5.2 or something the previous
Yeah.
quarter. Okay, so we just had this just before we went on air. Elon Musk was replying to Winton at ARK and at ARK Invest, and he says, "I have never seen anything grow faster than AI, not even close." I thought that was an extremely interesting comment from the boss.
Yeah. And a couple of days ago, we got Jensen Huang of NVIDIA talking about how he thinks computing at the data center is going to 1,000,000x over the next 10 years. And he hasn't been one for wild predictions. That seems pretty wild to me. Yeah, I think a chunk of it is from AI and accelerated compute that NVIDIA does. But maybe he's counting on quantum computing by the end of the decade. I don't know. I know Brian
Yeah.
Wong is talks a lot about that. I was shocked to hear that number.
and room temperature
Semiconductors
semiconductor or
or
semiconducting superconductors.
Yeah.
That's Brian Wong's two favorite subjects, and I barely understand them when he's telling me about them. So, but yeah, crazy times that we're in. But that's an interesting comment from Elon to say he's never.
I think this, like, people should listen to Elon about this. Like,
I think they
last
should.
year he came out and said NVIDIA's like a drug dealer. They have the drugs and everyone has to come to them.
That's right.
And now he's saying AI has been the biggest growth thing that he's ever seen. I think it's happened faster than the internet, just this inflection point that's been caused by the ChatGPT moment, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think people should pay attention to this and not be dismissive or skeptical of it.
Right. No, I thought it was quite the statement. All right, let's take a look at the numbers right now. We have the 10-year is back down just under 4% again at 3.997. We've got the 2-year down just a little bit in the after hours at 4.146. That is still, I'm looking at the wrong line. I'm very sorry, 4.379, but I was right about it being down just a tad. We're still looking at a pretty good inversion there. I keep asking everybody every single night, if I can remember it, have you seen a single article on the inversion in the last ever?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Nobody's talking about the inversion. I want somebody to explain to me why because we're almost to 19 months, which is the record that it's ever been inverted, and the inversion is by a greater margin. I continue to believe there's an actual shift in the economy. It might have to do with the aging population and all the wealth in the hands of the elderly. So I'm not sure. When I say elderly, I mean everybody over 55. Now that I'm really elderly, I'm going to lump all those
senior.
people.
I think you mean senior.
Senior
citizen.
I'm going to lump all of them in with me now. Okay, so anyway, that is fascinating to me about this inversion that continues.
What's oil doing, Randy?
What is oil doing? Oil is right at 72.26, right in the middle of its recent range. And Brent is both basically unchanged in the pre-market. Natural gas is the one that's been more fascinating. Up 5%, down 3%, up 6%, down 4%. Holy mackerel, it's just all over the place. And I saw a headline earlier today. It says, in the winter, you can expect some upward, some kind of, bursts upward in natural gas. That doesn't explain how it goes up 6% and it goes down 5%. And I don't know. I guess it's the Red Sea, but it's been crazy.
Yeah, there's limitations in like how much can be stored. I think that leads to some of the volatility because we know that there's more need for natural gas in the winter. Like that's not a surprise.
Not a surprise.
But I think there's limitations on transportation and storage that causes some of the volatility. And people are trading and speculating too.
Yeah, for sure. But that's been kind of fascinating. But basically, the Red Sea hasn't really had an effect on oil or natural gas that I can see. I mean, natural gas has been edging upward, but that might be expected in the winter. We've got the commodities generally up a little bit in the pre-market, gold up a little bit, nothing really significant. Dollar had rebounded a little bit. Of course, with the bonds being up, you're going to expect, the bond yields being up. You expect the dollar to be up, and it has rebounded from its, been down about 5 weeks in a row, I guess, and now it's picked some of that back up. Pretty significant downtrend. Any thoughts on the dollar or commodities?
Sorry about that.
I didn't.
My daughters get me. Can we talk a little bit about the launch I was at?
Yes, we can. I just was going to give the final numbers here.
Okay.
Pre-market, the Dow's up 46. That's 0.12%. S&P is up 5.75, 0.12%, exactly the same. NASDAQ futures up $18, 18 points, 0.11%. So they're all three in convergence right now. And then finally, we've got Tesla in the after hours is at up $1.02, back to kind of where it was before that big sell-off in the last 30 minutes or whatever. So that was a quite the sell-off in the last little bit there. So that's the numbers. Any final thoughts before you talk to me about the launch?
No.
All right, tell me, you got to see a launch in a really
Yes,
special way.
I'm in Florida for the week, and we decided to see if there was going to be a launch, and found out there was going to be one last night around 6 p.m. So it's around the same time as sunset. So it's actually a little after sunset. And there's a beach near where the launch is called Playa Linda Beach. But it closes at sunset. So literally they would kick you out or something. So I couldn't do that. So I rented a fishing boat and went on the Atlantic to watch the launch. And that was pretty cool. It wasn't as close as I expected, but one thing that was really cool is the rocket landed on land this time.
Right.
So not only did we get to see the launch, but we also got to see it land too.
Yeah, that's
So a nice little surprise.
That must have been quite something. So you said you've seen one launch before. Was this better or worse than the previous time you saw a launch?
I got to see more, but the previous launch I saw, it was in May of 2020 when SpaceX launched astronauts from American soil again for the first time in like 7 or 9 years, something like that. And that was just
a different kind of thrill.
Yeah, very thrilling. And I felt like incredibly thankful back then.
Yeah.
Just to like witness it all and be aware of it, and like being able to see through the media's lies, and be aware like all the good stuff that Elon, Tesla, and SpaceX are doing. That was just incredible.
After the last 2 weeks, you would end your conversation about that launch talking about the media lies. I can't believe I think it's the number one thing on every Tesla investor's mind right now is the horrible it's just I can't think of a word strong enough to talk about their lack of coverage of the Optimus 2nd gen and their lack of coverage of the amazing reviews that have happened with regard to the Cybertruck. I mean, those two things, I think they should be covered in regular news, but they're not getting covered at all.
Yeah. They can't stop the Cybertruck.
They can't. No, it's not gonna. They don't have it. They can try, but it'll never work. All right, Bradford, I am so thankful for you coming on and co-hosting the Thursday Good News program. And if I don't talk to you before, we'll see you a week from tonight with hopefully a much better stock market, a much more normal week. And maybe Tesla will even be up. Who knows?
Yep. Look forward to seeing you all then. And for now, I'll be at rebellionaire.com.
That's where we'll find you. And if you are looking for an opportunity to park your money someplace that understands you, that's the thing about these guys. They get you, that you're all in, but that you might want to put a little bit of it somewhere else. Did I get that right?
Yeah. We don't force people to sell their Tesla or whatever. We help them manage that risk, writing some cover calls to create a dividend on it. Also looking to trim an ad to take advantage of the ups and downs. We don't want to just hodl. We can't add value just by hodling.
It's true. It's not, it doesn't, it was all right. So there you go. A little commercial ad for you there at the end. All right. Thank you, everybody. It's been great talking to you.